The horned helmet. Hello, I am Thack from Thack Ironworks. Today we are making what I just said, a horned helmet. So, in our last video, I did an experiment hot dishing a bunch of helmet bowls. This was the one that really caught my eye and fits onto my head quite snugly. And this one I decided I was going to make into a horned helmet, kind of a fantasy style piece. Let me grab the horns. All right, so I've had these goat horns kicking around my upstairs for a couple of years now with the intention of making them into a helmet. So I think it is now the time to put them onto this one. So we will begin, I suppose. I want to add just a back piece to this. And I have gone ahead and did a little bit of templating. Came up with this piece here, which will go on like that. And then that allows me to actually have the horns mounted not as low, a little bit closer to the bottom there, which is why I'm doing this sort of thing with a little bit of a cheek plate coming off there. So let me go and cut that out of steel and then we'll continue. I'm back, here it is. So here we got the piece of steel here. Now I just need to form this around the helmet and start fastening that on. But before we get into the fine tuning and stuff like that, I think what I need to do is the extra pieces. I've decided what I want to do is a bronze trim around the bottom here rather than rolling the edge or doing anything like that. Usually something I see on Roman armor, and I've done it for Roman helmets and stuff like that, but I really like the effect of that, so I'm going to do that. I'm also going to do two flanges to hold the horn. So I need to get a piece of bronze that will actually grab that and hold it into place, and I'm not sure, because this is such a bizarre triangular organic shape, I'm not really sure what the overall effect of these things are. So I think I need to start with that. So let's just start roughing out various materials and then we'll actually get into the assembly later. Shall we begin? Okay, I have a piece of bronze which has been cut into a 3/4 inch strip. What I'm going to do now is carefully measure a line down the center of that. And then go over to a vise with really nice, sharp, clean jaws. All right, so I've taken my strip of bronze and bent it over on a 90, and then I put it in the vise and actually pinched it now. So I've got a rough U shape, and I went ahead and annealed it again because it does tend to work hard during this whole process. Now what I've got is a piece of 14 gauge, just an arbitrary chunk of steel that I've got here, and I just kind of want to use that as my form that I will form it over. And basically I'm just bringing it down so that I've got a uniform opening, about 14 gauge, so that it fits onto the 18 gauge helmet piece quite nicely, and then I can just tap it down. So this is not really a complicated process, it's just a little bit fiddly. It takes some time. Okay, so piece of bronze. I've got my weirdly shaped horn here, and I want to roughly center that. Actually, it's not going well at all here. Close to the bottom. Okay, that is somewhat the shape there. I'm using a dull stake here and just raising up that area. So I'm just going to start it out cold, and then I'm actually going to get it hot, do it hot, because I can get some depth very quickly and very pleasantly that way, not as loud. Okay, so those are the two flanges, just rough form now, so that gives me enough depth that I can play with. So I'll get in, do a bunch of refining on them, get them to fit onto each individual horn, and then I will have to cut out the perimeter. I'm probably going to have to default just to a round shape, just because it's going to look so weird otherwise, because the orientation is going to be highly specific about what works, but these points are going to be different from side to side, blah blah blah. When you're working with organic stuff, it becomes a little bit tricky sometimes. Now I've decided, because the finish on this helmet, this was all just dished out of the plate, and I've done no grinding. A grinder has never touched this, so I'm kind of liking the fact that it's just a hammered to finish, and I want to kind of maintain that for the rest of the helmet. And so it's just like a roughly hammered, everything very barbaric, organic sort of thing. So I think this piece of steel is looking a little too pristine. What I'm going to do is heat it up to anneal it, and then I'm going to do a rough planishing across the whole surface of that prior to actually fitting it on, getting some holes, and then we will bolt it temporarily into position. So let me just prep this piece, and then we'll get into more of the assembly phase. Measurements were made, holes have been drilled, and I did a little rough shaping, so now this piece should be able to pop onto here, and if I actually get the center, bolt this one in place, and now we can kind of shape this around the side there, and the vice grip. Into position like that. I'll get the other side vice gripped in there. We'll do some test measurements, make sure everything is balanced, drill a bunch of holes, and then this piece is on there. So I don't think you need to actually see that. It's not that interesting. So why don't you catch up to me after I've got this bolted together. Okay, so I have bolted it together, and we can see our general shape now. And if I plop it on my head, see that the cheek plates come down here, and I kind of like what I'm seeing. And now I'm trying to keep this as simple and basic as possible, but I'm not sure that I can just let this go. I think it would be cool to kind of have a dishing in here just to kind of reinforce this, also give kind of the hungry hollow cheek sort of look to this thing. So I think I might do a little bit of shaping on there. Remember, I'm going to have the bronze. That will be coming up and around here, and I'll actually be doing a little bigger piece on that part, and then the bronze will actually be coming around here as well and joining up there. So I think maybe a little bit of a detail in there. I'm going to try to not get carried away, but let's see what I can come up with that, do some shaping on this in general, and then we could get right into riveting it together. Okay, so things have happened since you've last seen me, and I haven't seen what I'm looking like in this, but I think these are looking pretty badass now. I'm quite pleased with that. So let's backtrack a little bit, and I'll talk about what I did. Okay, so I riveted this together. I didn't think I was going to bother showing you that, because you will see me do some riveting when we actually mount the horns to the helmet, and then you can see that process. Also, I did not show you the tedious and laborious process of forming. I can even take it off now. It's so tightly in there. Basically, this piece of bronze, which I raised up a triangular lump on it, then I had to cut the top off and then start opening it up, and through many annealings and putting it on and hammering it and then seeing where it needs to be lifted. Very tedious process, but eventually it just drops into place there and fits very nicely. One thing kind of funny that I've noticed in putting these together is the complete lack of symmetry in the horns, and it still works, and I really gotta hand it to Mother Nature. She simply does not give a flying fuck about symmetry, and I think that's really cool. But makes it a little difficult for me to try to balance things out. I think it'll still work okay. Our next step now is that I've got this roughly positioned in here, is to get the two horns pivoted into position where I'm going to decide where their best balance point is. I've got my curved area out front here, and as a default I went with a round shape here because I really didn't know where that was going to end up, so that just gave me infinite options there. So I've got it bolted onto my first hole. That basically indexes both of them. Now what I'm looking at is this ridge on both of them. Drill some holes in here, and then we can get this dry fitted to the helmet. After that we can get onto our band there, so let's do that. All right, so horns are dry fitted now, and I'm gonna take them off and we're gonna start working on our band here. All right, so I'm ready to do my bronze band around the perimeter, and this is kind of the effect that we're going for. You can see my Roman culus here that I made probably 25 plus years ago. So many years in the past. Thack is very old, just be aware of that, kiddies. I've been around forever. So I'm going to be putting this piece on, tapping it into place and closing it up, and it's kind of a cool process but a little bit awkward. And while we're here, we just released a video last night, came out last night as pertaining to the filming of what we're doing right now, and that was the one where I made all the discs into helmets. I still got them all sitting here, these various pieces. Anyway, the comments, there was quite a few of them. One of them, I'll do this one before I forget. The guy was asking about work hardening and basically hammering a piece cold. Does that make it harder? He heard something about that. Yes, without getting too deeply into it, when you work steel and even the copper-based metals such as bronze, as you hammer it repeatedly, it work hardens, and that is part of the strategy of making armor typically, is that at the end of the process, it's planished into place. Much like this helmet bowl, I planished that cold for several hours, and that is now work hardened, much more so than it was when it was annealed steel. So I won't get any deeper than that. The other questions centered around how to pad the helmet. This one is quite tight fitting, and I was doing that because of the look that I'm trying to go for. I find with these horn helmets close to the face like this that they tend to look better if they fit nice and tight. If they're too big and they get that Spaceballs Rick Moranis sort of look, tend to look a little bit goofy. So there's a really fine line about trying to find what the sizing is. This one, for example, is quite a bit bigger, especially for my oval head here. But you can see the padding has come loose here. And you can see this is about 1/2 inch foam over leather, creating this, which pads the helmet nicely to my head. And that, if you're going to be doing some sort of sport combat, that would be the very minimum that you're going to have. Probably more than that. If you're wearing it in a costume setting, then tighter fitting looks better. Not as much protection, obviously, but also less heat that you're creating in that insulating layer there. So I just find that's more useful for costume as opposed to combat. But sizing is very critical, and that is something that could almost be its own video. Perhaps we'll do something like that in the future. If you're interested in me kind of doing a breakdown, I've got dozens of helmets upstairs, and we could kind of go through a breakdown of what sizing can be, how you approach that, what your strategies are, how padding was done. At various times in history, they use different things for padding with different thicknesses. Blah, 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 blah. Let's go on. Let's get back to the video at hand. But I appreciate your comments. Keep them coming. Okay, I haven't done this in a very long time, but let's just see how it goes. This is happening in real time. What I'm going to do is find my center, get that onto the center, the back piece there, and well, let's just begin. Finishing. So I've got a Scope Nouveau product. They have sponsored previous videos. They're not sponsoring this one. This is called Black for Steel. So I've never used this product before. It's a gel, essentially a gun blue, and I'm going to try it on both the bronze and the steel and just see what sort of reaction I get. I actually have this to do a prototype for another wall finish I'm supposed to do for somebody. Anyway, I'm going to try this out. I haven't used it before. Now, Eric, my cameraman, already probably knows what I'm going to say, that this looks like quite a fetching patina. I'm going to get the horns put on now, and then we'll wax it up, and that will pop the whole thing out. But I really like the way all that hammer texture in there, all the pits and everything like that are darkened up, and we've got some subtle highlights on there, and then just a nice gentle buff on the bronze component. So let's get this thing together. We're going to back our unit up here so we can rivet these horns on. And there it is with a coat of wax. I think that came out really nice. I like the effect. I'm very proud of myself for not adding a lot of extra details and putting skulls and shit on that, or put spikes or anything like that. I just kept this one restrained, subtle. I think I let the horns do the talking on it. Let's just try it on. All right, I'm gonna get some padding in here, and then we'll probably do some beauty shots of it sitting out on the stones as we typically do, but there you go. What do you think? I'd love to hear your comments on this one. I went very rustic and barbaric, and I think that was the right way to go. I really like the effect of that entire helmet, the patina, the roughness of everything. What do you think? Join us again for a future video. That's it for now. See ya. See ya!